Hey everyone, really excited to be here today to talk to you about a topic that I'm personally really passionate about, and that is building networks and ecosystems leveraging blockchain. So I'll start off just a little bit about myself. My name is Craig Dewitt. I'm a senior director at Ripple and a founder of Payburner, which is a personal side project, e-commerce platform that uses blockchain. It's a platform. I'd love you to reach out to me at the Twitter handle below. If you like what you hear, or you have questions, please feel free to reach out. If you don't like what you hear, well, yeah, probably keep that one to yourself. All right. Well, let's talk about our agenda today. So first off, we're going to talk about really understanding the ecosystem or what we mean by an ecosystem. We're going to define what a platform means. It's a term a lot of people use, but definitions kind of vary. We're going to talk about the applicability of blockchain, and then what it takes to actually bootstrap a network. So let's jump right in. So defining an ecosystem. When you hear the term ecosystem, most people will think about these rich, diverse environments around the world. And that's not too far off when you apply it to a technical ecosystem. An ecosystem is really just a network of interconnected participants within an environment. Now, in our case, that environment is usually one that is digital in nature, and the interconnected participants are different sides of a multi-sided marketplace, which we'll talk about. Now, the reason I get so passionate about this is because there's a couple examples of network-type businesses that really monetize this and add a lot of value, like Visa in payment space, or Facebook in the social media space, or Amazon in e-commerce. And you can just see the value of these businesses. And not only the business is incredibly valuable, but you can kind of use that for a proxy for the value that they bring to their customers and people who are participating on the network. So really excited to talk about how we can build similar things using new technology like blockchain. So the reason these businesses become so valuable and deliver so much value is really this concept that's referred to as the network effect. A network effect is a phenomenon where a product or service becomes more valuable the more people that use it. So there's a different way to say that. Another way to say that is a network effect is one where a business enjoys an additional user of its good or service, and that enjoyment permeates the entire network, meaning that value is brought to the product, and other people can now experience the value of having new people on the network. The best way to explain this is really through an example. And the best example of that is through Metcalfe's law. And Metcalfe's law is really one that says the value of a network is proportional to the square of the number of nodes in the network. Now that sounds like super academic, because it is, so spare the math for a minute and let's just go through an example that illustrates this point. And that example, like best one I think, is just the telephone. So think about just your old school Ma Bell telephone, being able to call someone on it. Now, if the network is only two participants, that's not super valuable. Are you going to go out and buy yourself a telephone if the two people using it just happen not to be two people that you know? Probably not. But if you increase the number of nodes on that network and the ability of these nodes to interact with each other, a small group becomes somewhat valuable if a couple of people on your network are on there that you can reach out to. And then you think about the explosion of this network. If everyone has a telephone and everyone's on this network, all of a sudden the value of the network becomes so powerful that you're kind of at a loss if you're not on it. And that's really this squaring, or this logarithmic growth of the value of networks the more people that use it. And that's a really powerful thing, because it's really hard to start a network, but once you get over the hump, it really becomes an incredibly valuable asset that drives a lot of value. So in technology, there's some studies that really show that 70% or even more than 70%, so a high amount of a business's value is really just driven by these network effects, which is a new way of thinking about things for a lot of people, because product managers a lot of times will think about the widget that they build or the software experience that they build as being the product in and of itself and the value. But in many cases, in most cases, in runaway successes in tech, it's not actually that technical product, but the ecosystem of participants leveraging that really becomes the value. So the way that you create the ecosystem is you start out by building a platform. And just a quick digression, I've had the opportunity to interview a lot of professionals for platform roles, and I will tell you, I have never gotten the same definition twice when asking what a platform is from folks who've been doing this, many, many years. So I'll tell you my definition of a platform, and it varies. My definition of platform is one where you have an ecosystem or an aspect of an ecosystem that enables partnerships at scale by facilitating interactions between two or more participant types. So this means it's a way for people to get together using some kind of environment that is easier or more beneficial for other reasons than using what exists today. And that bringing together multiple participant types, that's a platform. So what does the platform do? Well, first off, it attracts different types of customers and partners by enabling them to interact with each other on attractive terms with less friction than they could do so today. Think about the telephone. Easier to do that than get on your horse and ride over there. The second piece is that in order to really create a network, what this platform has to do is there has to be more value than just getting one or two members. There has to be enough members of each group to actually see the value to join. And this is where the platform kind of becomes a multi-sided marketplace where you need critical masses of different partner and customer types to actually drive enough value to get to escape velocity or network ignition. And then finally, your members are usually divided in some way between two broad categories. On one side, you have customers. These are customers in some capacity, sometimes not monetary, are paying to receive direct value from the service. And on the other side, you have usually partners who are using this service or this platform to deliver value in some way. Traditionally, the partners are ones that are somehow subsidized by the platform to deliver value to those customers and to create a self-reinforcing cycle where these parties kind of get together and there's enough on both sides to actually drive value. So let's use an example that everybody knows. I am in no means a Facebook expert, but I think it's a really good example of a platform that really got some things right in terms of bringing different user types together. So the platform of Facebook is really the technology, the website that allows folks to, basically post pictures and, lurk and look at other people's photos and, smash that like button. So who are the participants in the basic Facebook platform? Well, we have the technology, which is at the core. No blockchain there. That's okay. Still super valuable. You have the creators. So the creators are the folks who are delivering unique content to Facebook. These are, cat photos. These are photos of vacation. This is your influencers. These are the creators who actually deliver the value to the platform of like photos and things like that. On the other hand, you have the consumers. So in the broadest term, these are the lurkers out there who are just brought to the platform because they want to see the photos of the creators. And yes, different participants can play different roles at different times, but for simplicity, let's just say you have the content creators and you have the lurkers who come on and watch the photos or the videos or what have you. Now, Facebook was able to bring these together with the right mix to where they're able to monetize it. And the third aspect of this platform is the business side. So this is the ad side. This is where businesses are able to pay Facebook to have access to these eyeballs and then to deliver ads. So if you think about what this platform is made up of, and we're going to use this paradigm later when we introduce blockchain, you have the partners. So Facebook's partners are really these content creators. And in many times, these are actually subsidized. So those, $1 million Kardashian photos they could put on there, she's really a partner of Facebook as a content creator. That drives the consumers to come to this platform and consume these photos or to watch these photos. These are really the customers. And they are paying to use the platform, not with money, but their eyeballs and their time allows Facebook to really monetize through this third aspect of their marketplace, and that is the businesses and the advertisers. And getting the mix right creates a virtuous circle where creators drive consumers, which drives advertisers, which drives more money for the creators, and you have this beautiful wheel that keeps turning around and around that throws off a substantial amount of money. And that's something that I'm going to talk about how we can build today using blockchain as a platform. So what is blockchain? It's a term that gets used a lot. You hear it at dinner parties and, If you go to dinner parties, I guess nobody goes to dinner parties nowadays, but it's a term you used to hear a lot at the dinner parties. And if you ever really need a definition to pull out of your back pocket, this is the best one that works with me all the time. Blockchain is just a technology that allows for truth without central authority. That's it. There's a lot of tech behind it, but the real value that it brings to products is that you can now have truth without a central authority. Now, there are some drawbacks, but some positives from this as well. This is awesome technology for peer-to-peer interactions that don't require a third party. So for value transfers or information transfers where you don't necessarily want a third party to be the arbiter of truth, blockchain is just this beautiful invention and technology that allows that. Now, there are some downsides. And relative to things that have existed for numbers of years, it's a relatively inefficient database in terms of both cost and speed. And for the product folks in the audience, it's really, really difficult to scale functionality. So when you're dealing with a distributed system like blockchain, you have to get agreement from everybody there to implement the functionality. And if you're on product, you know how difficult it is for folks to agree on functions and functionality. So it's very, very difficult to add new functionality to these blockchains and these platforms, which is why platforms that leverage blockchain is usually a combination of the technology itself or the blockchain itself, and then applications written on top of it that allow you to interface with the blockchain with a better customer experience. The thing to remember is that blockchain just isn't the end and a means of itself. It's just a tool that can leverage to build a better product experience in some cases, but definitely not all experiences. So blockchain is really, really good at, because of these attributes, it's really, really good at peer-to-peer value exchange. That doesn't necessarily just mean money, but it's peer-to-peer value exchange. And the cool thing about blockchain is it has built-in network effects. The built-in network effects are, as you can get different participants to join these ecosystems, you create this self-reinforcing experience where the value of the asset, because the utility is increased, the value of the asset increases. So you're never going to see on the Bitcoin blockchain or the XRP ledger, you're never going to see ads surface to users like, hey, check out this website before you send a payment. You're not going to see that because the ecosystem in itself is self-reinforcing, because the value of the asset is in direct proportion to the utility, which is in direct proportion to the mix of different participants who are using the ecosystem. So it's a really exciting thing, because this type of aspect has never existed before. So let's talk about how we can leverage those to build our own platforms, which then build our own ecosystems. So talking about blockchain as a platform to really build an ecosystem around, I've done this a number of times, and I found the best way to do this is actually to use an example. And there are tons of examples out there. You could even come up with your own. But the one that I like to use, because I have the freedom to talk freely about it and I actually understand what's going on there, is Payburner. So Payburner is a side project that I work on, and it's really an e-commerce platform that allows senders to buy things online from receivers who are selling things for digital assets, and that digital asset is XRP, which is like Bitcoin, but with some really interesting properties to it that distinguish it from Bitcoin favorably. So let's talk about building a platform around or with Payburner. So the core technology, when I talked about Facebook, I talked about the databases and aspects of being to upload technology to or upload photos to Facebook servers and have people look at them. Using blockchain as a platform is really cool, because in many ways, the infrastructure for value exchange is already taken care of for you. And so it's kind of a massive leg up when it comes to building new products or new experiences or building ecosystems, because all that work has really already been done, and it's been stress tested and used for millions of transactions. So Payburner itself is really just web-based application technology with some cool backend stuff built on top of the XRP ledger, which is a blockchain, just kind of like Bitcoin, that allows peer-to-peer value exchanges. So similar to Facebook, using blockchain as the platform, let's look at the participants of this ecosystem that's being built today. The first are buyers. So these are folks who are on the web who want to be able to have an excellent experience when they buy goods from someone online, without having to worry about different currencies, etc. So these are really the payment senders who are sending payments, leveraging the XRP ledger. On the other hand, you have sellers. So this is another aspect of the ecosystem. These are folks on websites who just want to sell goods for a value exchange. These are the vendors and also the ones who are receiving the payment over the blockchain for XRP. Now, the coolest thing about this ecosystem is that unlike with some of the social media platforms where you have to monetize the experience by usually offering, or disturbing the experience through ads, the amazing thing about blockchain is that the monetization aspect is done through digital assets. And the cool thing about digital assets is allows market participants or builders of ecosystem to monetize an ecosystem by providing a better experience for the customers without having to, charge an arm or a leg, because the ecosystem itself becomes more valuable and the digital assets therein that you own become more valuable in and of themselves. That's a really powerful thing, because looking back to how Facebook did it, and we use the same paradigm, for a company like Payburner, the customers are really the buyers, the folks who are going out and buying. That's the fragmented side of the market that we want to provide an awesome experience to. The partners, so these are people who are really providing the product experience on our platform for us. These are the sellers, so the vendors and the folks who are receiving XRP over our platform in exchange for value. And the monetization aspect is our ability to collect fees and value using digital assets as the medium of exchange. And then as we create value, we also create value to the digital asset being used, XRP, as a medium of exchange. And you can kind of see the rising tide here lifts all these boats to create this really amazing reinforcing cycle without having to resort to things like, ads, which is a very cool thing. So the tricky thing here, besides just, building a good customer experience that I know a lot of people can talk about, but leveraging blockchain on the back end, the tricky thing here is actually knowing who your customers are. So these are the folks who you really need to make happy. You're not folks that you subsidize, but the folks you really make happy, and who your partners are. The partners are folks you really need to join the network because they attract the customers. In many cases, these are less fragmented, they're more centralized, so they have more power in the equation. And in many times to get the network going, and even when a network is ongoing, Visa does this with their banks, you subsidize those players to play a crucial role within the attraction. And this creates the chicken and the egg problem. So a big thing that you'll hear in the ecosystem and the networks is what came first, the chicken or the egg? Meaning, what came first? Did you get a bunch of customers, or did you get a bunch of partners? And that's what kind of created the wheel, create this flywheel of attracting people to your ecosystem. And it's a tough question. I can say one that I've worked on for quite a while. So I'll tell you some of what I've learned. And the key is the mix is what matters. So if we have any like Rocketeers on here or folks from NASA, to really create ignition, the most important thing is getting the right mix of your flow working. And if you can get the right mix of aspects and participants within your engine, and that engine being the platform, really you can get into orbit pretty quickly. But getting that mix is pretty difficult. So we're going to talk about that. In order to get to network ignition being an inflection point of network development where the positive externalities reach a critical mass for sustainable growth, meaning you get that flywheel going to where you have customers and partners joining on their own to interact with one another, and your third leg is able to monetize that. That's really the network ignition piece. And that's overcoming the chicken and the egg problem that I talked about earlier. So here is the complexity of it. On one side, you have customers, and one side, you have what I'm defining as partners. There's a lot of urgency here. And the reason there's a lot of urgency is because there is some minimum required ratio to get to the network effects. If you think about it, we'll use telephones again. If no one is on the telephone side, it's going to be really difficult to get someone to buy a telephone, right? So there's some minimum required ratio to get folks to join. If you're above that ratio, thumbs up. You're getting into a place where you're able to drive value organically through your network. But the worrisome thing is if you're on the other side of that ratio, you're going to get to fizzle. And that fizzle means that people are going to start dropping off the network because there's not enough incentive for them to be on the network anymore. And that becomes a death spiral that happens to a lot of networks. If you just think back about the graveyard of social media companies, that's really what happens, is that as soon as you flip the switch and you're on the wrong side of the ratio, you get to network fizzle. That is not a fun thing. But I can say, being on the ignition side, the growth side, that is one heck of a blast to see organic growth of products. So the last thing that I'll leave you with here is that it's really crucial to get the mix right. And the way that you get the mix right is the chicken and the egg. You start with your partners. So partners are really the ones who are your infrastructure and are the ones who are delivering your customer experience. This is really that saying, build it and they will come. Well, the build it is not just build the platform and they will come. The build is you have to build that core platform, that experience, regardless of blockchain, but you build that experience and then you have partners come on that are offering their wares over that, whatever those are, and then that way you're able to go out and market to customers. It's really helpful to start off, to put your stake in the ground with your partners, and then to build the mix from there rather than starting vice versa. The last piece is that networks are super, super hard to build for a lot of the complexities that I just talked about. But once you get there, they're incredibly valuable. So some folks haven't had to do this, but it's important to realize that when you're building these networks, it can be capital intensive to kickstart, in many cases because you're subsidizing those partners to deliver value over your network in order to attract those first customers. But if you can get over that hump, if you can get to the right ratio, you can really get to network ignition. And when you're building on top of blockchain and you have the value and the usability of digital assets behind you, that network ignition can be incredibly gratifying and incredibly valuable as well. So I want to thank you guys very much. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed the conversation, please reach out to Twitter. That's the best way to get a hold of me publicly. And thank you all very much. Bye-bye.